Hurston then describes the night of the funeral. She talks about the creaking and loneliness and how Janie's in her room speaking to the lonesomeness, asking her questions, and if she wanted to leave and go back where she had come from. She was lonely. And I believe she was going crazy. But she was free. She wanted to find her mother. She wanted to find herself. And finding her stepping stones was the way to find herself. Again, self-realization. When she finally got clarification from her grandmother and her mother, she talked about the hate she has for them. But when she finally gets that clarification, she feels like she's at the end of the road and she would feel content. She's getting closure. Next, Hurston uses the image of the horizon and portrays it as this big, beautiful, unreachable thing. She goes back to what her grandmother used to say about how how her nanny had taken the biggest thing God ever made, the horizon. For no matter how far a person can go, the horizon is still way beyond you. And pinched it into such a little bit of a thing that she could tie it about her granddaughter's neck, tight enough to choke her. She's finally realizing, or she's finally hearing what her grandmother said about the world is bigger than you. Like, you're not the world. It goes beyond you. Life is beyond you. There's life outside of your life. And I think it led her to not be as conceited or full of herself. Chapter 6. She was there in the store for him to look at, not those others. And when he was busy, outside or away, and she found herself through with her store duty, she went into the back and sat on the kitchen floor and cried. She had no more blossomy openings dusting pollen over her man, neither any glistening young fruit where the petals used to be. She found that out one day when he slapped her in the kitchen. It was the meanest moment of eternity. This passage speaks for itself. She was abused by her husband, Joe, the one who passed away and was a king. This passage reveals the emotional and spiritual toll of Janie's marriage to Joe Starks. It marks a turning point in her awareness of how deeply her voice and identity had been suppressed. The store, once a symbol of Joe's ambition and power, becomes a prison for her. A place where she is expected to be looked at, not heard. Hurston uses figurative language, especially in the line about no more blossomy openings, which is giving the audience natural imagery of flowers and fruit to symbolize Jane's loss, vitality, and desire and sense of self. She lacks it. That's what the whole story is basically talking about. She wants to find her sense of self again. She wants to get that self-realization and get that she wants to reach her peak in her life. The phrase, the meanest moment of eternity, is haunting and poetic. It speaks to how a single act like Joe's slap brought her down to reality. She was no longer living in this honeymoon that she spoke to her grandmother about, or she dreamed about as a kid, or the love she yearned for her entire life. She no longer had that. Essentially, that slap, Joe's slap, sent her back into the real world. A world that she was blinded by because of love. It was an emotional degradation because she's a woman and she was getting abused. The syntax here slows the reader down because it forces us to sit in Janie's pain, her loneliness, and her growing realization that this life she's been living is not her own. This moment doesn't yet spark rebellion, but it shows the seed of resistance. It shows that she is on the path. It shows that she is not the naive girl that we met in the beginning, or the naive girl that Zora Neale Hurston wrote this book about. She is no longer a character who's taking, excuse my language, but the BS of other people. She's no longer silenced, and her life is becoming hers again, which is a full circle moment. And it feels great because even like as a woman, you see her go through so many trials and tribulations with different marriages, and the community talking crap about her, and the community not helping her when she's the one who went through all these changes. But she still has to put on a smile, and she still has to put on her bonnet, and she still has to portray this wife when he was never husband to her. Chapter 18. So she was home by herself one afternoon when she saw a band of Seminoles passing by, the men walking in front and the laden, stolid women following them like boreals. She had seen Indians several times in the glades, in twos and threes, but this was a large party. They were heading toward the Palm Beach road and kept moving steadily. About an hour later, another party appeared and went the same way. Then another, just before sundown. This time, she asked they were all going, and at last one of the men answered, "Going to higher ground. Saw grass bloom. Hurricane coming." Everybody was talking about it that night, but nobody was worried. The fire dance kept up till nearly dawn. The next day, more Indians moved east, unhurried but steady. Still a blue sky and fair weather. Beans running fine and prices good, so the Indians must be wrong. You couldn't have a hurricane when you're making $7 and $8 a day picking beans. Indians are dumb anyhow. Always were. Another night of stew beef, making dynamic subtleties with his drum and living sculptural grotesques in the dance. Next day, no Indians passed at all. It was hot and sultry, and Janey left the field and went home. Morning came without motion. The winds, to the tiniest, lisping baby breath, had left the earth. Even where the sun gave light, dead day was creeping from bush to bush, watching man. Some rabbits scurried through the quarters going east. Some possums slunk by, and their route was definite. One or two at a time, then more. By the time the people left the fields, the procession was constant. Rattlesnakes began to cross the quarters. The men killed a few, but then could not be missed from the crawling into horde. People stayed indoors until daylight. Several times during the night, Janey had heard the snort of big animals like deer. Once the muted voice of a panther going east and east. That night, the palm and banana trees began that long-distance talk with rain. Several people took fright and picked up and went into the Palm Beach anyway. 1,000 buzzards held a flying meet and then went above the clouds and stayed. One of the Bohemian boys stopped by Tia Cake's house in a car and hollered. Tia Cake came out throwing laughter over his shoulder into the house. "Hello, Tia Cake. Hello, Elias. Leaving, I see." "Yeah, man. You and Janey want to go. I wouldn't give nobody else a chance at a seat till I find out if you all had anywhere to go." That was chapter 18. In chapter 18, Zora Neale Hurston crafts an atmosphere heavy with tension and impending doom, mirroring Janey's internal awakening. As the hurricane approaches, Hurston uses figurative language and poetic diction to show how nature communicates truths more honestly than people. Pharisees like morning came without motion, dead day was creeping from bush to bush, watching man transform the environment into a living, breathing force. The unnatural stillness, the movement of animals fleeing east, and the buzzards holding a flying meat foreshadow not just a storm, but a turning point in Janie's life. The syntax stretches slowly and deliberately, mimicking the eerie calm before chaos. And while tea cake and other ignore the signs, trusting logic, money, and pride, Janie listens to what she cannot name. Hurston, our author, portrays Janie as deeply connected to the natural world, guided by intuition and quiet observation. Though she stays, her awareness shows she is no longer a passive character in her life. This chapter marks a moment where Janie begins to trust her own senses. Again, that level of self-realization, that level of trusting yourself before you trust somebody else, trusting your gut. This essentially foreshadows the emotional and spiritual tests to come in her life.